Welcome back, my students, to another episode of Comet Class. And in today's lesson, guys, we're going to be looking at Deadly Class Volume 2, Kids of the Black Hole. And yeah, this should be a really good video. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Let's go. So this volume pretty much starts off with us following this dude getting off of work, and he basically gets confronted by some of the family members of F-Face's crew, basically his family. And they basically attack this dude and take him hostage, or at least make him a victim in their spree of crimes. And yeah, each one of these family members has a pretty unique personality, and they're pretty funny characters, despite doing pretty messed up stuff, as we'll see later on. But after that, we get to see that Marcus and Maria and the rest of the gang pretty much have been going back to school at King's Dominion, and basically they're having to just live their lives after killing Chico. And Maria is basically the one that's been affected the most, in that she's been dealing with depression, and the relationship with her and Marcus has gotten very rocky because of the whole situation with Chico's death. And this is a very important plot point for the future, and this volume will end off in a way that really shows the importance of what killing Chico actually means for the plot, especially for Maria's character. But after this, we get introduced to a character called Lex. And Lex is basically this type of like jock slash preppy kid who actually has good intentions and wants to change the world with a bullet, I think he says. And Marcus doesn't really like the dude. He kind of feels like he's all full of talk. But he pretty much, shows what he got in the future of the volume. So Marcus basically gets taken outside by Saya, and Saya basically has an interaction with him. And while they're having this heart-to-heart, they basically get attacked by a person in a hood. And Marcus basically goes and chases after the person that attacked them, and it turns out to be Maria. And Maria basically just tells him that she feels that Saya is basically trying to steal Marcus away from her. And Marcus kind of feels that she's crazy. And rightfully so, because, she literally could have killed Marcus at that point had Saya decided not to grab the arrow. It shows Maria's state of mind being kind of unstable. And yeah, her character is very different. It's very difficult to understand Maria's sense of thinking. But yeah, after all that interaction, we get to see that F-Face basically gets interacted with his gang, his family. And basically, they kind of reveal that they kind of messed up F-Face's job, in that he gave him an assignment and they kind of messed up on it. They didn't do it right. So he's not getting the credit that he desperately wants, because that's the whole point of F-Face's character, is that he wants credit for the crimes that he commits and his family commits. He wants to be famous. He's a pretty conceited person, but, pretty messed up as well. So after that, we get to see that, F-Face's sister, I guess, or one of his family members, I think her name is Sue Ann, basically sees that someone was actually spying on them from the rooftops, and this was actually Saya. And now Saya knows where F-Face and his family live, so we will get a confrontation in this volume. Now we take it to King's Dominion, basically, and Master Lin basically is talking to a guy in shadows, and he's basically saying that he wants to keep his information a secret, and the information that he's gathering from, I guess, Marcus and other people. And he basically is looking at Marcus's journal, it seems, basically feeding Master Lin information. It turns out that this character is Shabnam, because Shabnam basically is a snake, and in the first volume he seemed kind of like, this very passive character that kind of wouldn't do anything. But yeah, that was all a front. Shabnam is kind of like a snake, he's basically kind of a coward too, but he's very smart, and we'll see that play out in the next few volumes. And yeah, so Marcus basically has an interaction with Saya, basically giving her his journal and tells her his backstory. Basically, he says, read his backstory. And this is where we get introduced to Marcus's backstory. The first time we get to see him as a child, basically his life after his parents died. And yeah, it was basically like a very strict school type for orphans, and they basically were tortured and beaten and sexually abused. It was pretty messed up. And eventually we get to see that F-Face actually was there with Marcus. He was his roommate. And it's not very told to us, what F-Face had done to Marcus, but we know that, he's a pretty messed up dude, as we saw in the first volume, and we'll see in the second volume. And, so I wouldn't put it past him that he did some pretty messed up stuff to Marcus. So Marcus basically feeds him a sandwich that poisons him, gets the guards to come in to basically check on F-Face, and this is where he kind of like lays out his plan and basically executes it and gets the guards basically killed, I guess, or at least maimed, and he grabs their gun and kills them. Which, if, like I said, I'm not putting everything in here because I want you to read the volume for yourself, but yeah, it's pretty told to us that these guards and, the principal, or, the higher up lady was messed up. So yeah, I don't blame Marcus for taking these guys out, because they probably do this to multiple kids, not just Marcus. So eventually Marcus arrives to, I believe her name's Miss Rank, and basically tells her that he's not going to kill her because he feels that more tortured life would be for everyone to find out what she did to all these kids, and basically to live her life in prison and see what they do to her in there, which was very satisfying to see, because this lady was just something else. And how she treated Marcus, and just, you couldn't even imagine what she did to all the other kids as well. So Marcus basically leaves her there, and this is where we learn that F-Face basically, killed the entire orphanage, basically killed everyone that was in there. And not only doing that, but we'll learn what he did to Miss Rank as well. So Maria basically shows up, and she sees Saya and Marcus basically talking to each other, and Saya just basically tells her that they were talking about something important. Yeah, they were talking about somebody finding Chico and stuff like that, which we know is a lie, but, Maria's unstable mind probably would just go crazy if she learned that Marcus was letting Saya know his bad story rather than her. So yeah, so we get that, and this is just planting the seeds, for, them to find out about Saya and Marcus, basically Maria. We'll see how that all comes to a head in the climax. So now we get Maria's backstory. Maria's backstory basically is that her father, I guess, owed money or something to some type of cartel, and they basically grabbed her father and crucified him. And before Maria could get killed, Chico basically said that she was part of his class. So the dude basically took, Maria in to be kind of like a spy for their family and to be the wife of Chico in the future. Yeah, so her father was basically burned, I think, alive or something like that. And yeah, it's pretty messed up. Now, going back to the main plot, we get to see that Saya and Marcus basically go to grab Let's and basically try to ask him to help them out in taking on F-Face and his family, because Let's is a very good bomb expert and they need something to get into their house because, F-Face is very smart. So more than likely he's going to have some defenses, and it would be good to have someone like Let's on their team. So basically Saya is able to convince Let's to go and, help them with F-Face in the future, because it won't be happening tonight, it'll be in a few nights, I believe. And yeah, so Saya basically tells Marcus that the person that she was going to go on a date with, or at least go see a band with, canceled on her. So he asks if he wants to go, and Marcus basically knows that he has responsibilities and he's in a relationship, so he's going to go check on Maria. When he sees that she's kind of like just drinking away her problems and just having a horrible time, like being very depressed, he basically shows us how human he is and how not, he's not like the main character that most people would, expect. He doesn't choose to do the right thing and instead chooses to go hang out with Saya. And this will be a huge mistake, as we'll see in the climax. But yeah, so basically Marcus, Saya have a huge grand time at this band, and afterwards they kind of like share a heart to heart and eventually end up sleeping together. With Marcus waking up the next day, wondering what exactly happened and feeling bad that he cheated on Maria. So Marcus is running basically to his work at the comic book shop and basically is feeling the hangover that he got from the last night and just thinking about what he did and how he cheated on Maria. And yeah, so Marcus basically is just having a really bad day and eventually has the feeling that he needs to, let out gas. And when he tries to do it in one of his friend's faces, a child friend, I guess, It turns out that it becomes diarrhea, and it's a pretty funny scene. Just the way it's drawn and the dialogue and everything. So Marcus basically is trying to, kind of get through this thing, let it pass basically in the bathroom. He actually uses the shirt of his boss to kind of clean himself, and yeah, it's pretty funny when the boss walks in and tells him that he's fired and that he never wants to see him again. I mean, I can totally understand that after the dude used your favorite shirt as toilet paper. I mean, it's pretty funny. So basically the gang is outside and Marcus's diarrhea, I guess, has passed. And Maria is not happy, so she definitely knows something's went on. And yeah, so basically we skip to the final climax. I know it's kind of crazy to go from, diarrhea joke to the climax, but that's how the story works. You're gonna have some funny moments, you're gonna have some very serious moments, and this is the serious moments coming, to play. So basically, all of them get in position, and they launch their plan with dropping some explosives and getting them inside F-Face's house, where the battle begins. And yeah, it's just a straight up I guess you would call it like a shootout. Tons of guns going off. And while that's going on, Saya basically starts taking on Soo-Ann, and they have a pretty cool fight, and eventually Soo-Ann actually gets the advantage on Saya, which is very impressive. I think a lot of people don't understand Saya is a very capable fighter. We saw that in issue 1 when the series first started. So for her to get pushed by Soo-Ann, it shows that Soo-Ann's actually either very strong for, a female, at least of her size, or she actually knows how to fight. I mean, it's pretty crazy. But anyway, so eventually Maria shows up, and Maria is very capable of fighting as well, but she's actually willing to let Saya die, and she basically tells Saya that she knows that she slept with Marcus. And this is where Saya and, Maria basically have to work together, and I believe Saya is the one that kind of just kills Soo-Ann by stabbing her neck, her throat. So that was pretty brutal, and eventually they get into a fight, Saya and Maria, but during this fight, the grandma of F-Face basically shows up and tries to kill Maria first, and yeah, so Saya basically gets attacked by, I believe, his brother or uncle, F-Face's brother or uncle, and while that's going on, F-Face is taking on Marcus and Lex, and yeah, there's just so much stuff going on in this climax. Eventually, F-Face tells Marcus to come on to the basement to finish things off, so Marcus takes this as his chance and has Lex cover him while he goes to the basement to face off against F-Face one final time. Now, while they're down there, it's revealed that Miss Rank, or Raints, was captured by F-Face and wasn't killed with the rest of the people of the orphanage, and was the only one that survived because F-Face allowed it. He basically tells Marcus when he shoots and he dodges, Marcus dodges the bullet, and this kills Miss Raints. Goes through her head, her skull. Basically, F-Face reveals that he waited for this moment. He waited a long time for them to share that moment for her death, because she did so much stuff that hurt Marcus. I'm not sure she ever did stuff to F-Face. I'm guessing not, because the way she was acting towards him and Marcus in this final encounter makes me think that F-Face tortured her like crazy over the years. But there's no way for me to prove that, just a theory. But yeah, so she's dead, and basically we get to see that Maria and Saya basically team up yet again, and they kill, they at least try to kill the uncle. This isn't until the uncle basically fights back and is able to fight back while there's a sword in his chest. And eventually, I think it's Billy that comes in and basically shoots and kills the uncle, basically in the skull. And yeah, there's a lot of shooting deaths in this book. So F-Face basically is attacking Marcus, and Marcus kind of like undoes the locks on the dog's cages, and the dogs attack F-Face and basically maul him to death. I mean, it's pretty brutal. It's not very graphic. I mean, we get to see some stuff going on. But it's implied that he's mauled to death, and that's the end of F-Face. And as Marcus says, there's really no, feeling of satisfaction. He's just dead, It happened so fast. There's nothing to savor about it. But F-Face did reveal something before he died, and that's that Maria's, history or past is going to hurt Marcus. And this is very important because he said he called them to come do a trade for Chico's head. And if you remember the flashback, Chico's father is the main dude, he's the boss. So yeah, they're pretty much, screwed because Marcus is actually holding the head of Chico. So Marcus and Maria basically talk to each other and basically reveal that yes, Marcus did cheat, and he's sorry about it basically. So we'll see if they mend in the next few volumes. But after that, we get to see that they go outside and they see Chico's father basically saying that he was wondering if they had seen his son, and they can see that he has seen his son. Marcus is holding his dead head, his severed head. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I mean, it's pretty graphic when you think about it. Just, this is a comic book. It's kind of cartoony looking, so you don't really think too much about it. But Marcus is carrying the dead, severed head of this dude's son. I mean, he's got to be, really, tipped off, basically. And we can see that they have Willie hostage. So you can expect things to pop off at the start of Volume 3. And that's the end of Volume 2, guys, with Maria and Marcus just surprised that their friend is being held hostage. And they know that these guys are not playing around. I mean, Marcus had no idea who these guys were until F-Face revealed to him who they were. But now that he knows, and Maria, has the past with her father getting crucified by them and burned to death, these guys are not messing around, and we'll see in Volume 3 just how dark these people are. And yeah, that's the end of Volume 2, Kids of the Black Hole. So Deadly Class Volume 2 was good. It's probably better than Volume 1, and Volume 1 was pretty solid. But Volume 2, it had great interactions with Marcus and the rest of the cast. It had great development for Maria and Marcus's relationship, and Saya's relationship as well with Marcus, kind of showing that it could go either way, and showing that Marcus is a flawed human being just like all of us, in that he chose to do the wrong decision and he feels bad about it, and he doesn't really understand what the right decision actually is, because he's just trying to figure out what love is and his place in all of these situations. And overall the villains were great too. Each one held their own. They weren't pushovers, but at the same time they weren't overpowered. The situation seemed very possible to get past, and I think this was one of those good first starting arcs. Like I said, Volume 3 is going to pop off right off the bat, so that video is going to be hype, and I'll hopefully have that out in the next 2 days. I do feel bad that I waited too long to do Volume 2. It won't be that much of a wait for the next volume to drop on the channel. But that's gonna be all, guys. Until next time, be sure to check out Volume 1 if you haven't already of Deadly Class on this channel. And Volume 3 will be coming out in the next few days. Until next time, guys, God bless you. Until the next lesson, keep on reading those comments.
I am who I'm meant to be. I am who I'm meant to be. Over and out again. My future needed clarity, so I could see how you